Welcome to Oxford News This Week. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And this week, filling in for Terry Stiles, I'm Rachel Baker. In this week's news, smiles abound at Banbury's annual horse show. Proposed senior living facility clears 2 hurdles, and attorney says the township doesn't owe a dime for the culvert project.
Stay tuned and learn more about these stories and others. The Oxford News begins right now. Safety inspection reports going back 3.5 years show the Road Commission was aware of the poor condition of a now failed corrugated metal pipe under the Paint Creek Trail. Words like heavy rust, holes, and buckling were repeatedly used year after year in reports. These inspection reports were obtained by Oxford Township's attorney, Gary Renthrop. Renthrop was doing research for an August 20th opinion letter on whether the municipality is financially responsible in sharing the cost of the wood trail fix. Upon reviewing these reports, Township Supervisor Bill Dunn wondered why the Road Commission did not take a proactive approach to fix the culvert before it failed.
Continuing with the story, Oxford Township Supervisor Bill Dunn was blunt in his response to the Oakland County Road Commission's request for the municipality to pay 50% of the $360,000 spent replacing the failed culvert beneath Wood Trail. Supervisor Dunn received a 3-page legal opinion from Township Attorney Gary Renthrop supporting his position. Catch more details about this story on OCTV and our future news broadcast.
37-year-old Oxford Township man Jason Guy was arraigned Tuesday in Rochester Hills District Court for pointing a gun at his girlfriend and for assault and threatening to kill her. If convicted, Guy faces 4 felony charges and a misdemeanor. He's charged with assault with dangerous weapon, a 4-year felony, 2 counts of possession of a firearm and commission of a felony, a 2-year felony, and possession of firearms by a felon, a 5-year felony, and a charge of domestic violence, a 93-day misdemeanor. Bond was set at $25,000.
Gray skies and wet weather did not dampen spirits during the annual open house and horse show held at Banbury Cross Therapeutic Equestrian Center. Smiles were everywhere as proud students rode around the indoor arena with their horses.
A senior living facility is looking to open its doors on a site located on the borderline between Oxford and Orion Townships. The plan became closer to reality last week. The Oxford Township Planning Commission voted 6-0 to approve a special land use for Grace Premier Senior Living to be located at 985 North Lapeer Road. Commissioners voted 5-1 to grant the project preliminary site plan approval, with a list of conditions to be met. Final site plan approval will be determined at a future commission meeting.
The Addison Township Library will be getting a new building. The library is currently located in a strip mall at 1400 Rochester Road. Although that building has served the library well, Director Jama Berman says the library is starting to outgrow the facility and it needs more private and community space for visitors. A meeting to host members of the public was held on August 21st, during which multiple ideas surrounding the new facility were discussed. Project finance and site planning discussions are all part of the ongoing process. We are really excited about this project for Addison residents.
Rachel Baker is one that's been doing a special report on the street, actually interviewing young people and older people alike. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about what you've been doing out there?
Sure. So I absolutely love history, and I've been going out to the street and to ask people what they know. I would create a series of questions to ask and go to young people, typically high school, college-age students, and try to quiz them on American history. It's really fun, and it's fascinating to hear the answers you get, and that'll be coming soon, more questions.
What kind of questions do you usually pose out there? I know you've had some interesting returns.
Yes, well, first I started with the July the 4th was the theme, and so I talked about the U.S. Constitution and the start of the American Revolution. So I asked, One, what war did we fight? And some people actually thought it was the Civil War. And one person said, well, it wasn't the Civil War, was it? No, it was not. It was the American Revolutionary War. And I was able to ask, who's your favorite founding father? What two things has Thomas Jefferson done for the United States of America? Things like that.
The main thing is you have to have a good sense of humor, I think, out there.
Oh,
don't
very
you?
much so, yes. And the point is not to be condescending, but rather have fun and show the community what importance education has.
Yep. And one question I think that you posed rather interesting is who our founding father was.
Yes.
What was the answer? Do you recall?
Oh, well, there was a lot. Most people went and defaulted to the safe answer, which is George Washington. Everyone knows he was the first founding father, but there was also founding fathers like Benjamin Franklin
and God.
Yes, one person said, Jesus, sweet little girl. She answered, who's your favorite founding father? Jesus. I was
That's
like,
adorable.
my heart. Oh my gosh, it was the sweetest thing I'd ever seen.
Well, when you see Rachel out there, don't be shy. It's fun, and I think it's quite enjoyable. You get to
Yes.
see yourself on TV and make fun of yourself, or
Oh, yeah.
enjoy the answers that you hear from the questions.
It's
Right?
a lot of fun. I mean, take it and quiz yourself, see what you know.
Absolutely. Good program.
Right,
I
it
recommend
is.
it.
And that's Oxford News for this week. If you would like to learn more about these stories and others, pick up a copy of the Oxford Leader newspaper, or better yet, catch us on our website at occtv.org, on YouTube, and of course, your regular channels, Charter Spectrum Channel 191 or AT&T Channel 99.
And coming up soon, OCTV's newest reporter, Alexis Ware, with the school news. Then OCTV's very own Cody Wright with reports of the sports programs. And you won't want to miss Auto Talk and Science in the News with Dave Kenny.
I'm Rachel Baker. Thanks for watching Oxford News this week, where we bring your news closer to home.
And I'm Elgin Nichols. Remember, always be kind to your friends and neighbors, and thanks for watching.
Welcome to Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny, and these stories are taken from the publication New Scientist. In our first story, the most common cause of female infertility, polycystic ovary syndrome, may be caused by a hormonal imbalance before birth. The finding has led to a cure in mice, and a drug trial is set to begin in women later this year. Polycystic ovary syndrome affects up to 1 in 5 women worldwide, 3/4 of whom struggle to become pregnant. The condition is typically characterized by high levels of testosterone, ovarian cyst, irregular menstrual cycles, and problems regulating sugar, but the causes have long remained a mystery. It's by far the most common hormonal condition affecting women of reproductive age, but it hasn't received a lot of attention, says Robert Norman of the University of Adelaide in Australia. Treatments are available for helping affected women get pregnant, but their success rates are typically less than 30% across 5 menstrual cycles. Now, Paolo Giacobini at the French National Institute of Health and Medical Research and his colleagues have found that the syndrome may be triggered before birth by excess exposure in the womb to a hormone called anti-Müllerian hormone. The researchers discovered that pregnant women with polycystic ovary syndrome have 30% higher levels of anti-Müllerian hormone than normal. Since the syndrome is known to run in families, they wondered if the hormonal imbalance in pregnancy might induce the same condition in their daughters. To test this idea, they injected excess anti-Müllerian hormone into pregnant mice. As their female offspring grew up, they displayed many of the hallmarks of polycystic ovary syndrome, including later puberty, infrequent ovulation, delays in falling pregnant, and fewer offspring. The excess hormones seemed to trigger the effect by overstimulating a set of brain cells that raise the level of testosterone. The team were able to reverse this effect in mice using cetrorelix, an IVF drug routinely used to control women's hormones. After treatment with this drug, the mice stopped showing symptoms of polycystic ovary syndrome. The team is now planning a clinical trial of cetrorelix in women with the condition, which they hope to start before the end of the year. It could be an attractive strategy to restore ovulation and eventually increase the pregnancy rate in these women, says Giacobini. It's a radical new way of thinking about polycystic ovary syndrome and opens up a whole range of opportunities for further investigation, says Norman. If the syndrome is indeed passed from mothers to daughters via hormones in the womb, that could explain why it's been so hard to pinpoint any genetic cause of the disorder, says Norman. It's something we've been stuck on for a long time, he says. The findings may also explain why women with the syndrome seem to get pregnant more easily in their late 30s and early 40s, said Norman. Anti-Müllerian hormone levels are known to decline with age, usually signaling reduced fertility. But in women who start out with high levels, age-related declines may bring them into normal fertility range, although this still needs to be tested, says Norman. And in our next story, one sleepless night may be enough to make your body start storing extra fat and breaking down muscle, research suggests. That helps explain why people with insomnia and shift workers with disrupted sleep patterns are particularly prone to obesity and type 2 diabetes, says Jonathan Sadarnes at Uppsala University in Sweden. He and his colleagues took fat and muscle samples from 15 healthy young men on 2 separate mornings, one after a good night's sleep and the other after they lay awake all night. After the sleepless night, the participants' muscles showed signs of protein breakdown. Their fat tissue, in contrast, had elevated levels of proteins and metabolites that are involved in promoting fat storage. Staying awake all night also appeared to change the expression of several genes in fat tissue that are associated with obesity and type 2 diabetes. These findings fit with previous research showing that sleeping for just 4 hours per night for 5 consecutive nights can trigger weight gain. Sleep restriction may mess with the body's metabolism by disrupting normal hormonal cycles, says Sadarnes. Sleep loss appears to impair the production of hormones involved in muscle maintenance, like growth hormone and testosterone, and to increase morning levels of cortisol, which promotes fat storage, he says. The researchers are now investigating whether specific diet or exercise plans could be used to counteract these effects. It may be the case, for example, that eating protein-rich foods and doing resistance training might reduce the risk of muscle degradation, says Sadarnes. So get to work. Well, that's it for this edition of Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny. Stay tuned to Oxford Community Television.
The Michigan Renaissance Festival is about to begin. Tell us which OC TV show you're watching and we'll send you a limited number of tickets while supplies last. Just send a self-addressed stamped envelope to 1775 North Lapeer Road and we'll get them back to you. See you there. Huzzah!
Hello and welcome to School News. I'm Alexis Wareham. John Ochins was previously hosting this segment and has since retired. In upcoming shows, you'll see ages of all grade levels featured on the show, as well as schools of Oxford School District. You'll hear quick recaps of school events and the school board meetings. Stay tuned for other shows in the Schooling Around segment to find out what's going on in your community and inside our schools. Next, we have Cody with School Sports.
On Schooling Around, we don't just school around. We get with everyone from the superintendent to the kids to find out what's new in Oxford schools. Schooling Around, only on OCTV.
What's going on, Wildcat fans? Cody Wright back here once again with this week's sports report. We are well into the fall sports season at this point, and we do have a lot to go over, so let's not waste any time and dive right in. First off, last Friday was the boys varsity football team's first game. It was here at home and we took on Romeo, a team who needs no introduction since their impressive run last season in the playoffs. To summarize the game, Oxford looked fantastic, the score remaining fairly close throughout all 4 quarters. Oxford gaining its first lead of the season in the third. Quarterback Drew Carpenter played fantastic, showing to be very confident in his offensive line, and running back Trent Meyer was outstanding, bringing in Oxford's 3 touchdowns of the evening. On the defensive side of things, Evan Brunning, Matthew Pullman, Joseph Vaccaro, Austin Schlick, Jerome Robinson, and Samuel Barrett all stood out, just to name a few. Oxford took the win by 3, a very close call in Romeo's last attempt to tie it, coming up with a no-good field goal attempt. Final score was 24-21. Also, the boys soccer team split the week in their 2 matches. On the 23rd, taking on Linden on the road, we took the win 5-3. However, on the 28th, we headed on over to Farmington and struggled a bit, falling short 2-0. The boys tennis team held the same schedule this week as soccer. On the 23rd, taking on Romeo here at home, absolutely crushing them 8-0. On the 28th, meeting against Brandon once again at home and taking it to them as well. The final score is 8-0. The girls golf team met against Troy Athens last week at the Metamora Golf and Country Club. It was fairly close but fell short in points. Final score was 236 to 225. And last but certainly not least, the girls volleyball team had a busy schedule as well. On the 25th, taking on Birch Run and Berkeley, 1-0 wins on both accounts. 3 days later, we faced 3 matches on the road, taking on Rochester 2-0, falling to Troy Athens 2-0, and then returning around to take down Notre Dame Prep once again 2-0. Volleyball is a great sport to watch, and I think we have a great season ahead of us for these girls as we do for all the other Oxford fall sports. Next week, we'll follow up on football. We take on Lake Orion on the road this week. I'm sure we will have more to report on for soccer, tennis, volleyball, and golf, as well as cross country, boys and girls who have a meet at Oakland University this week, and girls swim and dive who take on Berkeley here at home. Oxford is off to a great start this season. So get yourself out there to these events, and you can find all the info you need as far as dates and times at oxfordathletics.org. You can also find past scores, stories, and statistics all right there. Once again, that is oxfordathletics.org. While you're at it, might as well check us out at occtv.org. All of our coverage of these events, along with many other programs we put together just for you. You can find that once again on our YouTube page, which you can access through the website. That's occtv.org. Well, guys, I want to thank you all for watching and remind you to tune in next time. But until then, I'm Cody Wright, and go Wildcats.
Welcome to this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and these stories come from the publication Automotive News. In our first story, top NAFTA negotiators from Canada and the United States wrapped up a third day of two-way talks on August 30th, agreeing to meet August 31st to resolve final differences before a deadline, with Mexican counterparts on standby to rejoin negotiations. Despite some contentious issues still on the table, the increasingly positive tone contrasted with President Donald Trump's harsh criticism of Canada in recent weeks, raising hopes the year-long talks to revamp the North American Free Trade Agreement will conclude soon with a trilateral deal. Negotiations entered a crucial phase last week after the United States and Mexico announced a two-way deal on August 27th, setting auto content rules and paving the way for Canada to rejoin talks to modernize the 1994 accord that underpins annual trade of more than $1 trillion. Three-way talks were already underway at the technical level, and Mexico Economy Minister Ildefonso Guajardo was expected to rejoin talks with U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer and Canadian Foreign Minister Chrystia Freeland, people familiar with the process said. There was no deal yet, said Freeland, who briefed reporters at the end of the August 30th talks. I had brief conversation with Ambassador Lighthizer and his team, and I had a couple of things to say and will reconvene in the morning, she said. The NAFTA deal taking shape is likely to strengthen North America as a manufacturing base by making it more costly for automakers to import a large share of vehicle parts from outside. The automotive content provisions, the most contentious, could speed a shift of parts making away from China. A new chapter governing the digital economy, along with stronger intellectual property, labor, and environmental standards, could also benefit U.S. companies, helping Trump fulfill his campaign promise of more American jobs. Trump had set an August 31st deadline for an agreement by the three countries, which would allow Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto to sign it before he leaves office at the end of November. U.S. law requires Trump to wait 90 days to sign. Trump has warned he could try to proceed with the deal alone with Mexico and levy tariffs on Canadian-made cars if Ottawa does not come on board, although U.S. lawmakers have said ratifying a bilateral deal would not be easy. One sticking point for Canada is the U.S. effort to dump the Chapter 19 dispute resolution mechanism that hinders the United States from pursuing anti-dumping and anti-subsidy cases. Lighthizer said that Mexico had agreed to eliminate the mechanism. Trump also wants a NAFTA deal that scraps dairy tariffs of up to 300%. he argues are hurting U.S. farmers, an important political base for Republicans. But any concession to Washington by Ottawa is likely to upset Canadian dairy farmers who wield outside influence in politics with concentrations in the provinces of Ontario and Quebec. And back at home on the automotive front, India's Mahindra and Mahindra is seeking an injunction against Fiat Chrysler Automobiles to stop FCA from proceeding with a patent violation complaint aimed at stopping Mahindra from exporting a Jeep-like vehicle to the U.S. Fiat Chrysler filed a trade complaint with the U.S. International Trade Commission on August 1st, seeking to prevent Mahindra from importing the Roxor into the U.S., an off-road vehicle that looks like a Jeep. According to the complaint, certain design features of the Roxor infringe the intellectual property rights of FCA's Jeep design. The complaint was without merit, Mahindra said in a statement on August 29th. The company and its Mahindra Automotive North America unit have filed a public interest statement with the Trade Commission and have begun proceedings in Michigan court to enforce a design agreement that it executed with Fiat in 2009. We are asking the court to block Fiat from participating in the ITC International Trade Commission claim, an injunction, because the fact is that they agreed in 2009 to never bring such claims if we were to use a grill that they approved. The Roxor uses that grill, Mahindra said. FCA has not claimed damages against Mahindra, but has sought to permanently stop Mahindra from importing any components into the U.S. that infringe upon its intellectual property rights, Mahindra said. FCA has said that Roxor imports threaten it with substantial injury because the SUVs are underselling Jeeps. Mahindra capitalizes on the cost advantages of manufacturing their products in India and then importing knockdown kits to the U.S. where they are assembled in the Detroit area. Mahindra said it rejects the notion that the Roxor is an imported low-quality knockoff kit car. It said the SUV does not compete with FCA vehicles. The Roxor is manufactured and assembled in Auburn Hills in the first automaker plant to be built in Michigan in the last 25 years, the company said. Well, that's it for this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and as always, may the wind be at your back as you cruise down life's highways.